It's Lent. What spiritual practices are you doing this week on Happy Hour? Welcome back to Happy Hour, our podcast for young adults here at the Cathedral of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus. I'm Rick.
And I'm Holly.
And we are so excited to be able to talk to you about something that we're already in.
Yes.
We're already in Lent.
Yay.
Isn't that crazy?
Lent.
That's kind of crazy to me. It's funny. I just almost stopped the recording, by the way. I
Oh.
almost pushed the wrong button. That's why everybody listening, you couldn't see my face, but I almost realized that we had to start all over again. But we didn't. We're still here. It's all good.
We're all about new beginnings.
Okay.
go.
Nice tie-in. Very good. I like that. Speaking of new beginnings, so we're recording this on Friday, and so the first Friday of Lent. So we just had Ash Wednesday a couple of days ago, right? And I don't know, Ash Wednesday to me seems to be the third most attended Mass of the year.
So. Yes. I was on campus and every seat was filled.
Yeah.
We had to grab more chairs, which is usually uncommon. So I was floored. I was like, this is wonderful.
And when you say on campus, you mean on campus at UT.
At UT.
Not on campus here at the Cathedral.
Correct.
But I will say also here on campus at the Cathedral, we had a lot of people. I went to the 805, and that also included the school children. So, of course, that one was just, there wasn't even standing room only. It was wonderful. But it's interesting to me that it's not a holy day of obligation, yet for all intents and purposes, I do not see outside of Christmas and Easter a time where more Catholics come into church.
No, I think it's definitely the third.
It's got to be.
It has to be.
I haven't done any official numbers, but I mean, common sense tells me.
I feel like a lot of people think it's a holy day.
Yes.
And then they all come.
I could not agree more, because you know how many people I'll say, it's not a holy day of obligation, but we'd like you to, what? It's not a holy day?
No.
And I'm like, dang it, I shouldn't have said anything. Yeah, if you just believe it, then good. But see, that's the beauty of it too. Like, it doesn't have to be. People want it. They desperately want to reevaluate their lives. Like, what are we doing? We're reevaluating, right? And it's a chance to start over. It's almost like New Year.
Yeah. It's kind of like you're remaking New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
Or more spiritually based, I guess.
Yeah, it tends to be a little bit more spiritually based than our New Year's resolutions. However, I think that there's a crossover. I think a lot of people have a New Year's resolution of giving up or losing weight, and during Lent, people have a resolution of losing weight.
Or
and by the way,
chocolate or giving up.
Well,
yeah.
see, that's the byproduct, right?
Right.
Like, and so we're going to look at intentionality today with our Lenten things. It's like, yeah, you can give up chocolate and everything, but if you're giving it up so that you can lose a few pounds, not the right idea of Lent. That's the right idea of New Year's. Okay, awesome. But Lent is more, let's sacrifice. It's time to not just sacrifice, because that is a sacrifice, but it's something else too. We're going to be moving towards something else. It's preparation time. And a lot of times, I don't know about you, Holly, but during my preparation, so if I'm preparing for if I'm preparing for an exam, right, what do I have to do? I have to get rid of distractions. Lent is about getting rid of some distractions too. Let's face it. Some good Lenten things that we're going to talk about different things. But just as a side note, before we do talk about that, I have a board out in my office that all the middle schoolers see every day. And it says joke of the day. And next to it's the saint of the week. So I try to balance it out. But on the joke of the day, it hasn't been a joke since Lent started. Instead, on it says what you really should give up for Lent. And I leave that title there, and I put a new thing in every day.
Ooh.
So like first day was Instagram filters.
That's a good one.
Right?
Very good.
Yesterday
Authenticity.
was exactly. Yesterday was biting your nails.
Okay.
So it's
some students do that, yeah.
Yep. And it's this kind of pull of different things. But let's talk about Lent for a second. Yeah. Now you helped lead Bible study on campus.
I do.
And if I'm not mistaken, you just recently had one.
I did on Tuesday.
Did it have anything to do with Lent?
Yes, of course.
Oh.
It was Fat Tuesday. I could not, right?
That's awesome.
Had to make some Oreo cheesecake truffles just in celebration of that. And then
I'm sad I missed that Bible study.
we'll have to make them again, maybe on Easter.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah. But we talked about obviously Lent and our spiritual habits. And we sort of went around and said what we're giving up or what we're adding. And I think a really interesting point that was brought up is we don't want to make ourselves completely miserable, because what's going to happen after Lent?
Exactly.
You're not going to continue whatever that thing is that you were giving up or adding. So the most important thing is almost a moderation with what you're giving up or adding. And also, sort of as you mentioned before, Rick, that we tend to focus a lot on vice during Lent, which is absolutely, we need to do that.
Certainly.
And sin. And we want to go to confession. We want to get better.
Absolutely.
We want to rid these things from our lives. And in the Bible, it says, we should either flee from sin or like fight it and try to defend yourself from it.
Yeah.
And there's something very interesting my spiritual director told me one time. And she said to take a step towards virtue and away from vice. So it's almost like it's almost a more positive aspect. It helped me.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to dwell in unforgiveness of yourself. And I think it was just a wonderful kind of perspective on that.
That's awesome. I really like that. I almost visualize it as two different things are going on, right? Over here we have God and goodness and qualities that hopefully we want to attain on the one side. And then on the other side, we have what we're currently engaged in, right? So we can, and definitely we have to battle that for sure, right? Like we have to battle that. But do you stay on that side where you're battling?
Right. And you're in a hole.
Yeah.
You're just running in circles.
Yeah.
You don't want to, because sometimes those things almost in that perspective for me didn't work. And I was like, okay, I'm like trying to fight it or I'm trying to flee.
Right.
And it's just not working.
Right.
So what should I do?
Yeah.
Well, think of the opposite of that vice. Whatever you're struggling with, think of the opposite and try to attain that.
Yeah.
Try to do things in your life that will add things to your life that will get you to that goal. Instead of looking at what's troubling.
Right.
Look towards the goal.
I love that. That is awesome. Because you think of Lent and immediately there's several things you think of: ashes, you think of confession, but you also think of giving up something. So this new take on, it's really reclaiming what Lent is for, right? It's preparation time. Jesus going into the desert is preparation. And I would maybe tell everybody too that look at when the devil tempted Christ. Okay. It wasn't day one. It wasn't Ash Wednesday, right? It was 40 days. I mean, he'd been there for 40 days, suffering, physically suffering, hungry, thirsty, right? And then the devil came when he was at his physically weakest moment, right? And he will do the same to us. He's not going to come at you when you are reading your scriptures every day, when you're praying every day, when you're genuinely looking to deepen your relationship with God. That is typically not when the devil comes, because he can't win. He's easily defeated. So we have to be mindful of the moments when we're starting to get weak, and then strengthen. So move towards that strength. How do we move towards that, right?
Right. And it's interesting, really quick note, sometimes you might experience when you are, like, let's say you're, reclaiming your Lent, you're reclaiming that moderation in your life to find balance. How it's just so interesting, because sometimes the devil will attack right on the cusp of when you're trying to get close as well. So when you're in the moment, when you're, like you said, reading scripture, in prayer, adoration, confession, the devil might not attack then. But when you're trying to get there, it's going to be really difficult. He's going to make it difficult for you.
He knows he's losing a grip. And really, I mean, any smart tactician would never attack a stronghold, right? You attack where you know you can win. And so be mindful of the areas in your life where the devil could win, right? And those are the areas that we need to look at. And I think your advice is tremendous, Holly. I think look at those areas where the devil might win and just say, okay, what is the opposite? Like, what's the virtue here that I need to move towards? And let's go for that. Let's just leave this here and just move. Let's get going. Instead of I always, because I know a lot of people say I struggle with the same thing over and over and over. And I get that. I understand that. I mean, I feel like maybe we all do that at times, right? But instead of looking at it, well, here I go back to battle again. No. Here's an opportunity to move. You're not stuck. You get to move. And so we're going to look at some ways that we can move, right? Which I have 7 spiritual habits that I'd like to share. I know you have taken on some stuff for Lent.
Yes.
And initially you were going to share that, but I said, hold on, because I want to go through these 7, and I want to see how many, if any, you have already matched up before I even gave this list.
Okay,
I think that might be interesting.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, let's start off with, I think, something that's kind of, it seems basic, but not many of us do. Okay. So 7 spiritual habits we're going to go over. And I will say, when you're hearing these, think of one that you would like to pick up, right? And go with. So first one is make a daily schedule. Now, what I mean by that is, make a commitment to get up at the same time if that's going to be your time with the Lord, right? Or it's noon. Okay, well, break away. You're going to break away for lunch. You're going to spend the first few minutes talking to the Lord. Or maybe it's, I don't recommend as you're falling asleep, because that's typically not quite, like I always kind of equate it to, well, if I'm going to have a conversation with one of my friends, it's not going to be when I'm falling asleep. It's just not.
You're not attentive. And
Exactly.
You're not actually,
You're
really
done.
present.
You're done for the day,
you're done.
right? You're done. But I would also, because even last night, my oldest daughter, it was starting to get late, and she's like, oh, I got homework to do. Totally forgot. And I'm like, okay, well, you're going to get up early and do it tomorrow because you're done for the day. You're exhausted. And that's not the time to enter into great conversation, right? So I say make a daily schedule and stick to it. All the important things in our lives we have schedules for, right?
Yes.
And how easy is it to schedule on our new phones and all that stuff nowadays, right? Super easy.
We got color coding.
Oh.
We got everything.
Oh,
all
my
the organizational tools.
But do you schedule prayer? Oh, or is it just, when I have time?
Depends.
Yeah. Now we could say, of course, Mass, right? Well, of course. But this is personal prayer. My thought is you really need to schedule personal prayer time. I do that. And listen, all I'm going to say is before I scheduled personal prayer time before in my life, I was really bad at being consistent at prayer. Once I started scheduling it, miraculously, I was a lot better at being consistent with my prayer. So making a daily schedule for your prayer time, I think, is huge. And it can be something as simple as like you're going to do a rosary at a certain point, or you're going to read a specific book that's going to help you deepen your spirituality, whatever it is. Or you're going to, instead of maybe normally you go home and you're going to stream Netflix or something. You got your show.
You could even, like, in the car, what I like to do is a Divine Mercy chaplet if it's a short drive.
Yeah.
Because it's usually like 7-8 minutes. So if you're unfamiliar with it, it's a wonderful, you also use the rosary to do it.
Yep.
And you could also do a rosary in the car too.
Absolutely.
When you're just traveling places.
Yeah, for sure. Formulaic prayer is very good in our lives. I'm a spontaneous prayer kind of guy, but I also really love formulaic prayer. So maybe it's a certain prayer you say at certain times of the day too. Our priests do that. The monks do that. There are certain times of the day where the bells will ring and they know, it's time to pray. It's because they've scheduled prayer. They've actually scheduled. God is so important to them that they put him in their schedule. And so he should be with us.
I've once heard, with going on the scheduling thing, someone once told me, well, okay, throughout the week, put God like at least in one place in your week. And I'm like, I don't know how I like the sound of that. Like scheduling God for one day.
Right.
I kind of like to think it as like God's like in the center and then everything is like a spoke that goes off of it.
I like that.
Because I feel like if you schedule God at one point in your week, you forget about the rest of the days, and it's not in your daily life. So instead of keeping God on Sundays, try to implement him more throughout your just daily life. I promise your life will be more fulfilled and you will feel so much more love.
It's true. Instead of just Sunday, how about all the days that end in Y? Oh, yeah, right? I mean, but really, you lose your focus. And that's true with anything. Like, if you're not constantly doing something, you know, I play guitar. If I don't constantly practice, I lose it over time. I could probably pick it up, but it's not as good. Doesn't sound as good. It takes me a lot longer, right? And isn't that like our prayer life? If we drop it, it takes us a lot longer to get back into the routine. It, you know, sometimes then it feels, oh, I don't know if I did it right. I don't feel like I did it long enough. I don't even feel like it was good. But when you are doing it, you realize it's a conversational piece with the Lord, and it becomes so much better.
And we don't want to rely on ourselves. Because
goodness.
That will not work out too well.
Never has in my life. So put the Lord at the center of all your days. Okay, so number one spiritual habit, make a daily schedule to schedule in time with the Lord, right? Number two, begin the day with a morning offering.
Yay.
Is that on your list?
Yeah, it's on my list.
I knew that would be. I knew that would be. Why'd you put it on your list?
I put it on my list because in the first moments that you wake up, I mean, instead of checking Instagram, instead of looking at your phone and being anxious about what you have to do that day, because sometimes I wake up anxious. I'm like, okay, I have to do this, and like, let me, get my coffee, let me get breakfast, like rush. Let me take 15 minutes instead, center myself with Jesus first.
Nice. I love it because you're right. I think if most of us are honest, the first thing we reach for is our phone. And you
turn off your alarm.
I literally reach for my phone first because the alarm's going off. But there are also times where I will wake up. I know what you're saying. Like, you wake up anxious and you're like, it hits you what you have to do that day, which you have to start preparing for. And then the wheels start going and you can't stop. But you can stop that madness, the hamster wheel, right? Just take a deep breath and start talking to the Lord. Listen to the Lord. Go. I recommend in this kind of morning offering that you have a specific place that you go.
It helps.
Yeah, it really does. Because then it's like, oh, this is designated, this is what I do here, right? Whereas opposed to laying in bed, well, I sleep there, so.
Yeah, it doesn't help. Like, if you're talking to a friend, what amount of like commitment and intentionality are you giving them in that moment?
Yeah, yep. All right, so number two spiritual habit is begin with a morning offering, which you had. You didn't have the scheduling one. Or did you?
Kind of. When you said that, I was like, okay, I'm doing like in the morning, I'm trying to do more prayer. Okay. So I kind of like equated both of them at the same time.
Yeah. And those are two, they're kind of similar, I would say. But but you can schedule time anytime during the day. But also having 7 of these that we're sharing is a very holy number. So I will keep those two separate. Number 3. Ready for this one?
I'm ready.
Okay. Now, again, this is a big one. This is huge commitment. But just trying to encourage during Lent, maybe we do some different practices that we don't. Go to daily Mass. That's a big one.
It is.
Because that's every day. Right? Now, I will say maybe it's not that big because depending on where you go, some daily Masses are like 15 minutes long.
True.
Literally. Most, I would say, are right around that 25, 30-minute mark. Right kind of in that sweet spot. So it's not, I know it's a ask, but if we're real, it's like 20 hours of your total time during a 40-day period. It's not a lot. In comparison, it's not a lot.
No.
Right? But it is, but it is also a big leap forward in the amount of time that we give to the Lord.
True.
Right?
Yes.
So while it might, like if we equate, I don't know how many hours are in 40 days. So you got to go 24 times 40. I cannot do that math.
That in my head.
That's like it's over 8,000. I know that.
Okay.
Right? Isn't it?
Probably.
Okay.
I'm going to have to calculate it now.
Now,
we're specific.
Well, the good news is I have the Galaxy S22 Ultra. So I can do this insanely fast. I'm sorry. I said 8,000.
I was like, wait, are you sure?
This is why I double check my math. 960
That's why we have our calculators and phones.
And this is why I don't teach math. So there we go. 960 hours in 40. And really, you're just giving up 20 of those.
Which is how much.
Are you going to go percentage-wise?
Yeah, we're going percentage.
I knew you'd go percentage. So you tell me.
2%.
2%. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Can we give that to the Lord?
I feel like this is a telethon. Can you give 2%? Just 2%.
Yes.
If everybody gives 2%, we'll have a matching offer of 2% from the people here on this podcast.
Yes. We'll do it with you.
That was my telethon voice. It was not very good. I apologize. But I mean, if you think about that, like, okay, 2%, that's not a lot in the grand scheme of things. But at the same time, it's moving you towards more. Mm-hmm. Like, think about that. I don't think anybody's like got to the end of their life and going, gosh, I really wish I'd spent less time with God.
Yeah.
No.
Said no one ever.
Said no one ever. Rather, I think we always want to. I think we have good intentions, but we don't know the practicality, or we don't make it a priority, whatever it is. This is making it a priority. Spiritual habit number 3 is go to daily mass. I'll bet that was not on your list.
It actually was not. I considered doing it a few days a week.
Okay.
Because it's a little hard because it's at 5:05 or something on campus, and I have classes at that time.
5:05 a.m. You have classes?
PM.
Oh my goodness.
PM, afternoon. So some of my classes overlap with that time, sadly. But I was thinking like maybe like a few times a week would be good.
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm. Yep. And sometimes maybe you have to, like, if you take this on, remember we said at the beginnings, take on something. Mm-hmm. If this is one you take on, and like an instance like that, maybe the cathedral has an 8:05, or maybe, somewhere close has a comparable, one that works better in your schedule. Sure. So, all right. 4th spiritual habit, ready? 15 minutes of mental prayer.
Mental prayer. I had 15 minutes of silence, so that was actually funny. It's pretty close.
Oh, that's really good.
Almost
I like
verbatim,
that.
but not.
Yes. So 15 minutes of quiet time. That really kind of goes, okay. As Catholics, we're pretty good at, again, formulaic prayers that we've heard, we recite. I don't know as to how much we really give in those prayers. How much we're thinking about the words we're saying, or are we just reciting? That's why I like this particular one, this 15 minutes of mental prayer, where you go in with no agenda, right? You go in with no formulaic prayer. You get ready for some silence, and then you listen, and then whatever you want to say to the Lord, you say. Mm-hmm. He already knows, so really saying it is for you.
Right.
But there is power in vocalizing.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
Because, growing up, I didn't really I had a lot of mental contemporaneous prayer in my life. But I realized I didn't really speak it out loud. Mm. And then once I think I hit probably like late high school, early college, I was like, whoa, I haven't done this in a Bible study before, really. And it kind of felt a little awkward. Yeah. You have that you don't have a comfortability with it.
Right. Yeah.
Speaking out loud. It's just different.
Yeah, it really is. And I don't know at what point I started to feel comfortable with speaking out loud to the Lord, but I almost feel like it's been all my life. So for someone like me, I think it comes a little more natural. And yet I have some of my own children. It does not come natural. Mm-hmm. Right. But when you do it more, you get better at it, just like anything. So I think it's so important that we vocalize our internals, right? Like this is how I'm feeling, Lord. This is what I'm going through. I know, but me saying it also helps me, right? And I don't know, because there's almost this I can keep things inside and it's almost secret, even from the Lord. Well, if you just think about that, of course not. But at the same time, when you it's out. Mm-hmm. It's out there now. You cannot take that back, right? So to say, Lord, I'm frustrated right now, and I really need your help in this area of my life. Give me grace. Send me the Holy Spirit. Whatever it is, vocalize it. And that helps you not just internalize, but now you can go out.
And you're bringing maybe the sin or to light, which is something very important to do. Because if you don't do that, you don't have accountability.
Exactly. This is why confession is so great for us, right? I don't know why people think confession exists if they think it's for the church, because it is for the church because the church is the people, but it's not for the pastors.
Establishment of the church. Yeah, the
Like, if anything, I would assume we wouldn't want more stuff, right? Like, that's less responsibility. No, the sacrament of confession is there for us. It's for release, redemption, and I'm trying to think of another.
Reclaiming.
There you go. I like it. Yeah.
3 R's.
The 3 R's of reconciliation. I don't know. I'll start to make up something later. Something better than that. But yes, that whole idea of 15 minutes of mental prayer, I love it. All right, moving on to number 5. Number 5 is 15 minutes of spiritual reading.
Yes.
Is that on your list?
Yes.
That's great.
Not 15 minutes exactly, but
that's okay.
Replacing spiritual books with screen time.
Oh.
So
replacing screen time.
My bad.
With spiritual books.
Yes.
I got you. They all know what you meant, but.
That's exactly what I meant. Yep. I was like,
I'm tired of this spiritual stuff. Give me some Netflix.
Yes. But I definitely thought, doing replacement behaviors is also really important when you're trying to build a new habit. Because if you don't do that, you're just going to fall back right in.
Right.
So try to replace maybe in your life something with something else that's for the good, for the better.
Yeah. I love it. And that really goes back to your Bible study from earlier, right? I love it. That whole, it's a change in thought. So spiritual reading is not like Catholic commentary on current events or anything. That's not what we're talking about. I want to be clear on that. Spiritual reading would be like, you want to read more about the early church fathers, or you want to read about our creed, or you want to deepen your knowledge of the 4 pillars of the church, or how to have a more contemplative prayer life, or learn from Saint Teresa of Calcutta, read something from
Saint
that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, those are spiritual readings. I don't want to, we already get enough commentary on current events through a Catholic perspective. So this is different. All right. 2 more. Okay. Number 6, the Rosary.
Yep.
Is that on your list?
Mm-hmm.
I knew it. That's a go-to, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is.
In your lifetime, how many rosaries do you think you've prayed?
Ooh, that's a good one. I've been in different places in my life where I was more like praying the rosary, and then I kind of went out of it and then came back into it.
Absolutely.
So I can't even estimate, but.
Do you think you've prayed at least 100 rosaries in your life?
Yes.
Do you think 1,000?
I don't know.
Like, you think about that for a second.
I would hope so.
I know.
But I can't say for sure.
But that's not a bad thing. It's good that we don't count, right?
Thank goodness.
Oh my God, I don't.
We're all to keep track of things.
Yeah. No, the good news is whether you've never said a rosary or you've said a rosary every day of your life, the most important rosary is the next one, right? So, right now, kind of in that moment, maybe you're not a rosary prayer person, and but you maybe have kind of wanted to be a little bit. I can give you one piece of advice, and it's actually Nike's advice. Just do it.
Just do it.
Right? Just do it. There's only one good way to do it, and that's just to jump in. I used to have a rosary ring that rotated.
I have one on my keychain.
Oh, nice.
Decade? Is that what you mean or no?
Yeah. It's like 1 decade, but it rotates. Like, so you're the whole thing on yours rotates, like the whole ring itself rotates.
Gotcha.
Mine was a ring that was stationary, but it was like a bezel.
Oh, that's cool.
It was really cool. And this is when I was working at Sam's Club. I'm working 3rd shift. I'm driving forklifts, right? And so as I'm driving, I'm rotating that rosary ring and praying along the whole way.
I love
which
that.
was just really cool. And so I don't know if it broke or I lost it or something, but I've been looking for a replacement of that for such a long time.
Are there any out there?
They're hard to find. The one that I had in particular is very difficult to find, but they are out there. And I would say even if it's just that, maybe you just start with a decade, and that's all. But maybe then you move towards an entire mystery, and however that looks in your life. But pray the rosary. There's such grace in there. And again, just real quick, the words of the rosary are scriptural. So you're really praying scripture, just FYI. And if you need to know where those scripture verses are, why don't you leave a comment on this podcast, and then we'll comment back and say, here's where they are.
Exactly.
Or you can look it up on Google on your own.
Yeah.
So that's fine. All right, last one. Last one that I have, right? Number 7 spiritual habit, a daily examine.
I do not have that on my list.
Ooh.
Maybe I should add it.
At the end of your day,
Okay.
you take a look back and you look at your day through the lens of Christ. Right? So, all right, was I Christ this morning when I was driving? Was I Christ to whatever your job is? Was I Christ there? Whatever family you have, was I Christ there? Whatever enemies you might have, was I Christ there too? Oh,
Ooh,
yeah.
Drop on
That one doesn't sit too well.
Squirming.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody listening right now is squirming just a little bit because now you're thinking about your day already.
Like,
You're listening to this going, what was I like today? But that's why it's so good, right? Is that, if we're good students, we have a test, we get the results back, and whatever we got wrong, we look at and try to understand it. It's the same with the daily examine, but not just what we got wrong, also what we got right. Mm-hmm. It's okay to recognize what you've done right.
Right. It's encouraging to yourself.
Yeah.
Motivating.
It's not bragging.
No.
It's saying, here's the reality, and here's some areas where, you know what? I won today. Amen. I won today. Thank you, God, for that grace, right? Mm-hmm. And now here's some areas. It's almost like a letter from Paul.
Oh, that would be a good analogy.
Yeah, he always does this. Like you read it, it's like, brothers and sisters, yes, you guys, you're so good at this. Look at all these wonderful things that you're doing. It's amazing. Now we have some opportunities for growth. That's kind of how I feel like every letter from Paul goes.
And he also, it's funny, that reminded me also of something from Bible study, but he examines himself.
Yeah.
He says, there's one verse in Romans, he's like, I do what I do not want to do. And that also relates to vice and sin.
Yeah.
We don't know what that was.
Right.
It wasn't clear.
Nope.
But he was pretty broad, but it can really apply to all of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
But he does that himself. Now I'm thinking about that, but he was brash but humble, I think. I think there's a good mix of that in him. Stand out, but also, not draw attention to yourself. You're always pointing that attention towards God. I can imagine that Paul was one of those guys that when he walked in a room, everybody just starts to kind of listen to him or gravitate towards him, or because he's an attention getter. Mm-hmm. Not that he's seeking it, but he's an attention getter. And what I loved about him all the time, you'll see it, like he always points everybody towards Christ. He's like, but it's Christ. Here it is, but it's Christ, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that. So our 7th spiritual habit is the daily exam. Let me just recap the 7 real quick. Okay, number 1 was make a daily schedule. Number 2, begin the day with a morning offering. Number 3, attend daily mass. Number 4, 15 minutes of mental prayer. Number 5, 15 minutes of spiritual reading. Number 6, the rosary. And number 7, daily examine. All right, now you've had some of those on your list. I did.
What did I leave out?
I have some personal goals, like no social media. I want to make sure that I am filling my life with like podcasts, like spiritual podcasts or spiritual books or like movies even.
Yeah.
And I'm really trying to focus on in James, book of James.
Yes.
He has a lot of great advice
in
there.
Love James.
And the power of the tongue is one of his, I think it's chapter 5. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just it's like the words you speak lead you in the direction you're going and also show the status of your heart. And it really spoke to me this Lenten season. So I really want to be mindful of that and carry that onward after Lent, because you don't want what happens in Lent to stay in Lent.
Right. It's not Las Vegas.
It's not Las Vegas.
There you go. If that helps you remember. I don't know that it does. It might detract. Anything else I missed?
I said volunteering.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah, that's really a good one.
I'm trying to add that maybe like at least one time into my week.
Yeah.
Because if you like for a college student, speaking as a college student, I can't necessarily always give them money.
Right.
Because they're trying to spend that on other things and like just food and living. So giving your time is something that you can also do this Lent.
Yeah. That is a great spiritual habit. I think too, like if you just think about it, when do we receive the most? It's usually when we're giving. Mm-hmm. Think about Christmas. We always feel better when somebody opens a gift that we gave them and it just brings joy to them, rather than us opening a gift that, it's always better when you're giving, and you tend to receive the most then too. So it's really, there's a good byproduct of volunteering. So, wow, we have given a lot of spiritual habits today.
We have.
Which is great, because
and you don't feel pressured to
not at all
do all of them.
No,
either.
no, please no.
But I would encourage you to try some of them.
Yes.
And if you want to try all, that more power to you, and that will increase your spiritual journey tenfold.
Yes. And if you do end up trying all of them, you are amazing. I mean, you're amazing anyway, but you're going to be doing it better than us, because we're trying some stuff. We're trying to, but really the idea is choose one and go for it. And if you find that you need to choose another, go for it. It's really, we don't know your story, but you do, and you know where you need it.
Right.
And you know when you're struggling, but you also know when you need to be pulled a little bit more.
And don't fall into comparison either with other people's, what they're giving up for Lent, what they're adding for Lent.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, these are good ideas. And you're like, I should be doing all of them.
Exactly.
It's like a gym. Like, focus on yourself kind of with this.
Yep.
And tailor your spiritual habits to yourself.
That's right. Yeah. Because at the gym, there are some people that need a little more leg work. Sure. Right? And some people need a little more upper body work. Sure. But you, so absolutely do that. Well, I know it's a little bit longer one, but I think it was worth it. It was for me anyway. I know I got out of it. So we appreciate you listening. Again, like, share, subscribe, all those things that help us, but also hopefully help someone else. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time on Happy Hour.